welcome to Revealing Conversations with Petra Nicoll. I'm here today with Adrienne, a marvelous healer, an incredible coach, and I will read you her bio. Adrienne is an empowerment life coach and the developer of InnerSpeak Breakthrough Coaching Process, a method that creates permanent change for clients in as little as a single session. InnerSpeak generates positive results in any area of a person's life: relationships, career, health, and success. And it is a form of clinical kinesiology. Well, I'm excited about that. She's an author, teacher, internet talk show host, world traveler, and financially independent entrepreneur. Her passion is creating quantum change in her own life and sharing that with others, assisting them to do likewise. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you, Petra.
It's been a few years since you and I had a conversation, and a lot of changes have happened in your life.
Absolutely. And probably a lot of changes in yours and a lot of changes for everyone else. So this is the time of change.
This is the time of change. So you have moved to be near your daughter, and you're taking care of a 6-year-old child at the moment, your grandchild.
Yeah.
I was just having a little short intro with Jean and said, I could handle that for maybe a day or two, and then I'd have to have, my time. And 6-year-olds are so fascinating and wonderful, but they do. Like, my son was one of those children that didn't sit down and just play with him by himself for a few hours. He had to be entertained all the time. And
that's Trinity. That is my granddaughter. Yes.
Okay, so you're familiar with that. So, Jean, tell me a little bit. We are in such a time of great change that you call spiritual alchemy. What do you mean by that?
So, back in the ancient days, in the Middle Ages, alchemy was a really big deal, and the philosophers were working on what they documented as changing lead into gold. And really, I think that all of that was sort of a cover up for the spiritual masters. What they were really doing was they were changing our lower consciousness into a refined golden body of consciousness, and so, after that, and a lot of the methods got lost, or were written in code or whatever. So people really have tried over the years to take a piece of lead and turn it into a piece of gold. And I don't think that was really ever what they were all about. But we're in a time now where the energies on this planet are pushing us to do just that, to refine our energy, to refine our consciousness, and to get rid of the dross, if you will, the lead. That whole thing about, get the lead out. Well, it's time for us to get the lead out and move into higher consciousness and really find our power, find our truth, and stand in it and claim it. But it's hard to do that when you're still asleep.
Well, I call this the time of great awakening. I just finished my billionaire trilogy, and now I'm thinking about doing the 4th book called The Billionaire, The Great Awakening, because due to all the stuff that's going on with the coronavirus, and I feel that this is a time where humans are being asked to really wake up and become more conscious. And 35 years ago, my spiritual teacher said that we had one foot in the photon belt. So that means we're already in the 4th or 5th dimensional field. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, and I think that there are different levels of it. I think that the people who are not awake and who have no interest in anything spiritual, that's a good job description for them. And we require all that, everything from the least awakened human to the highest bodhisattva master. And because those guys, I kind of call them, they're like the rocks or the stones. They're helping us stay grounded on planet Earth. And that's important, because those of us who are moving higher and higher and higher would be quite happy to float away,
I've been there. I've been there. I didn't really want to come back from India, and I wanted to
Yeah.
stay in the cave and meditate 16 hours a day and not have to deal with this physical reality. It seemed quite ugly. So, but my job was to be here. So my guru flew me here from India.
But you know what? You can't really refine your soul sitting in the cave, cross-legged om, it doesn't work. And kind of for the last, I've been in Tallahassee now 2.5 years. And for the first year that I was here, that's really pretty much what I did. I sat cross-legged on my sofa, and meditated, wrote, did my spiritual practices, worked with my clients, but I really didn't leave my house much. I really didn't get into the outer world. And I think maybe that time was a time of preparation for me for really where I am right now. Because I think if I hadn't really rested for a good year, I wouldn't be able to handle the 6-year-old, because I am out of the frying pan and flat into the fire, and having to put into practice everything that I've learned over the years. And really, it's kind of cool because I'm doing it with a clean slate, with a child who doesn't know. And if somebody had done it for me when I was 6 years old, I probably would be a lot more advanced than I am now. So it's really, I think, a blessing for both she and I. So I don't know, but yeah, this is a huge time of change.
This is perfect. That the Godhead called you out off the couch. Said, okay, enough of this sitting. This is how it was for me after leaving the ashram and going back into the world. It seemed pretty easy. I mean, and then eventually,
for sure.
First, because I mean, sitting cross-legged and meditating is also not really an easy job. It's not like you're just dilly-dallying around. You're actually meditating and doing really important work. And, coming back into physicality, like in India, they're calling seva, selfless service, and so the Indian people don't know how to meditate a lot of times. It's what I witnessed in India. They don't, their attention span is shorter. In the villages, they like to do seva, selfless service, and not sit like the Westerners for hours and hours. So I asked my teacher once, why is it that the Indian people don't have to meditate as much as we do? He said, we don't have to crack open their hard minds. That's what his answer was.
I get that.
What are the phases of alchemy that we go through when we make the decision to wake up? How did this happen in your experience?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So the first phase of alchemy is called Nigredo. And it is this place of complete unawareness. It's where we are when we're beginning on our spiritual journey. And if you, alchemy is all through the tarot deck. If you look at the 0 card of the tarot, the Fool is in this place of unawareness. And Nigredo literally means darkness. So it's where we are, it's where we exist before we start taking responsibility for the things that we're creating in our reality. And it's actually, even though I've been on my spiritual path for many, many years, but 3 years ago, you and I were chatting about this, I had an accident where I tripped on a route when I was hiking in the woods, and I fell and I ruptured my eye. I blinded myself in my left eye. And so I think that's where I was. I was still hiding in the darkness, in the shadows of my fears. And so when we're in Nigredo, we haven't really reached a point of accountability. We don't fully accept responsibility for everything that's happening in our reality, because we are creating it. So I also think that Nigredo is the place where most of the people on planet Earth exist today. They're unaware that they're unaware. So victim mentality lives in that space, suffering lives in that space, loss, sadness, shame, grief, all those other lower vibrational things. Nigredo equates to the 3D reality, really. And when you begin to move past that, then you're able to just observe all those things like suffering, loss, sadness, shame, all that. You're able to observe it and go, oh, that's interesting. Instead of getting caught up in it and allowing it to make you spiral downhill.
Mm-hmm. and realizing that we are actually the script writers of our own reality.
Exactly.
It's a tough one for people. You know, once in a while I have a client that I coach, and they tell me the story over and over until at some point I can say to them, so why do you think you're in this story, and how did you write it, and why? What are you supposed to learn from it?
Yeah.
And
Right.
some people, you know, put their head in their hands and take a big sigh. And others say, wow, that is a good question. Why did I do this? What am I learning? So what did you learn from this fall? Obviously, there was something something you couldn't look at, and through alchemy, you were able to transcend it. So how did you come out would be the best question to ask you.
So I had to move through all the processes, because right after the accident, I literally spent over a month in bed. The trauma had been so harsh on my body that it took my body a while to catch up. You know, and to begin to be able to face the outer world. So when I realized that I was needing to wake up, I moved into the second phase, which is called Albedo, and it's the process of purification. It's actually a term from astronomy as well as alchemy, and it speaks to the reflectivity of an object. So when we start to wake up to our truth, we can choose to do our inner work and clear away whatever isn't serving us anymore, or not. It's a choice place. But Albedo is that spark of light that wakes you up, you know, in the morning when the sun begins to come streaming into your room. You know, it hits your eyeballs and you go, oh, do I really want to get up now? Or do I just want to pull the cover over my head, or, you know, whatever. It means whiteness. So after about a month of this sleeping and recovering, I moved into that. And I was absolutely determined to figure out why I created this. Because I didn't want to have to go through the next harder lesson, you know, the carrot and the stick theory. Yeah. I didn't want one to be harder than that one.
What's next?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
and that was a question. I wasn't going to ask that question.
As you were saying it, I get pictures of things, you know, and I saw you in the forest with the stick stuck in your head, in your eye. Oh, yeah. And I was just putting myself there. Were you alone?
No, actually, I was with a group of people, and it was a fundraiser for a nonprofit that I was the chairman of the board for. So there was a whole bunch of people there, you know, and I think that they were all much more upset than I was, because I was in shock. It didn't hurt. I couldn't see what had happened to me. One of the girls handed me a cloth to put over my eye because my face was hanging off, you know, and she said, oh, wow, I knew that you did not have a clue what was going on because I handed you that cloth and you put it right here instead of up here to hold your eye in place. And, you know, so, yeah, it was quite interesting, but I never was in any pain. I never was in any fear. And, you know, they had to call in the EMTs to come get me out of the woods. And the little town where I lived in the North Georgia mountains didn't have a hospital that was prepared to deal with that kind of trauma. So they had to life flight me to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where there was a trauma hospital. And I was just kind of like enjoying the whole thing. You know, I mean, when I got in the ambulance to go to the place where the helicopter was going to be, they had this really inept EMT, and he was like trying to figure out how he could start an IV, because, you know, that's the first thing they always do in the hospital is start you an IV. And he's like, I've never done this before in a moving vehicle. I was like, don't do it. Do not touch me. Let's wait till we get to the hospital because I'm fine. I don't need your IV, and I don't want you poking around in my arm. So, I mean, I was arguing with the caregiver, you know, and then when the life flight thing started, by this time it was dark, and I was really kind of pissed off because I was laid down, and at this time I think they drugged me up. But I was laying down and I couldn't see out of the helicopter. I'd never been in a helicopter before. That's probably the most expensive helicopter ride I'll ever take, you know, and I didn't get to see anything. I was like, well, darn, you know.
Oh, that is funny. Did you ever write that story down, Jean?
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
good. So
yeah.
is
I
it
just
published?
finished a book actually, and I'm now looking for an agent. It's my first foray into fiction. It's a spiritual romance novel,
Well,
and
if you can't find an agent, I have a publishing company now.
oh, cool. Okay, well, we'll
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
talk.
talk.
We'll talk about it. So
Yeah. So,
you had an enlightenment experience in 2002. Was that the enlightenment experience? Was the accident or
oh, heck no.
no?
No, because before 2002, I really was still asleep. I've always been a spiritual seeker. Let's put it that way. I was raised in a very fundamental Christian family in Tallahassee, Florida, where I am now. I've come back home actually. And I always knew that everything that I was learning in church wasn't quite right. I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't say it's not quite right because of this, but I knew I wasn't getting the whole story. And I got to tell you, I've been kicked out of way too many Sunday school classes for
Ah,
asking hard questions that nobody could answer.
yeah,
So
same here, same here.
it was a rocky road, and I was exploring all along from that, even to the point of in my 50s, I went to seminary through the Episcopal Church. I took a 4-year course called Education for Ministry, and I was going to become a continuing deacon in the Episcopal Church. I kept thinking, well, surely I'll get the answer in seminary. That's where they have all the real answers. No, I learned nothing more than what I knew going in. I finished the program and never did anything with it because I was disillusioned at that point. And it wasn't until I stumbled upon metaphysics that I began to see, oh, yeah, there's a huge body of knowledge that I've never been shown because I was limiting. I was putting all that inside a box, and I never looked outside the box. So, so I was starting to explore, and in 2002, I was taking a class. It was on a Friday night, and I had taken a class at a bookstore. It was a metaphysical bookstore in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was on my way home, and I heard a man's voice in my car saying, "It's time for you to put behind you everything you've done up to this point." And I'm like, "What?" And he repeated himself. And I started arguing with him because, again, that's what I tend to do. And I said, well, wait a minute. Don't be taking away my livelihood unless you've got something better to offer. Silence. And that was the beginning of it. I received a huge download that night that I now know to have been a download of sacred geometry. And even then, I'm still arguing. It's like, well, wait a minute. What's all this stuff about geometry? I can't even do math. I can't add 2 and 2 and make it come out to be 4 twice in a row. What are you giving me this geometry stuff for? And that's when InnerSpeak, I opened a channel, and InnerSpeak, which is the healing modality that I created and that I teach all over the world and I work with clients on every day. But that's when it began to come in. And literally it shut down my life. It shut down the company that I was working for. The company went bankrupt. And Friday afternoon, my boss calls me up and he says, Jeannie, I hate to tell you this, but we're closing the doors on the company. There's no severance. There's no notice. I've really enjoyed working with you and have a nice life.
Goodbye.
And so I was out of work. So I had time to listen and to sit in front of the computer and to receive this information and type. And that's what I did for 3 months. And when InnerSpeak finally had come in and it was complete and I had this volume of work, I got offered a job that was better than the one I'd had before. So I know it was all part of the work of spirit.
Who was the voice? Did you ever figure out who was speaking to you?
Yeah, Archangel Michael. But it took me, I didn't know that at first. I didn't know anything about channeling, Petra. I didn't have the knowledge that would even say you're supposed to ask who's talking to you before you listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
All I knew was it just felt like love. And it's like I was in this love bath the whole time I was writing. And, and the tears were flowing out of my eyes, but they were tears of joy, not any kind of fear or sadness or anything like that. So it never occurred to me that I should ask any questions. I listened and I wrote and I processed, and that was that, so yeah, that's how it happened.
So what do you think is the meaning and purpose of what's happening on planet Earth right now with the coronavirus and all the control that's going on?
Yeah, so I would have to say, now again, this is my opinion, nobody else's. So y'all take what you want and leave the rest. But I really believe that we've been carrot and the stick. We've been asked with the carrot to wake up, to wake up, to wake up, to take responsibility, to heal the earth, to heal yourself, all of that kind of stuff. And I really believe the coronavirus is the stick. I think that Gaia Earth has had enough and knew that we had to be pushed to do something. And if you look at the outcroppings of what's happening to, I think, everybody on planet Earth through this coronavirus. I mean, it's horrible that so many people have died, but I believe that they had contracts to leave at this point anyway, because I'm a firm believer in contracts, soul contracts. And so I don't think there are any accidents, and I don't think anybody who caught coronavirus caught it by accident. You know, exactly. I think that they probably signed up for it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of healing going on. There's healing of the earth. I mean, you can see on the internet how animals and bodies of water and, you know, you can see Mount Fuji from Tokyo now. And you haven't been able to do that for years. You know, there's so much that's happening and taking place because we are sheltered in place and we're having to be quiet. We're being forced to take responsibility and figure ourselves out. And really, I think we're being pushed to leave behind everything that isn't serving us. So I think a lot more people are developing compassion for each other, for their fellow humans, and for life, period. And we're beginning to see what's important and perhaps what's not so important. So because we haven't been able to go out and shop, you know, a lot of people are letting go of a lot of stuff. And, you know, things, and that stuff is lower vibrational stuff that begins to hold you down and weigh you down. And so yeah, I think that's really what's happening. And I think that it's going to lift away, and we're going to be better off than we were before. We're kind of in that Albedo sort of place right now of spiritual alchemy. And when things begin to open up, we're going to move into the third phase of alchemy, which is citronitis, transmutation. We're going to be able to transmute all that lower stuff into a higher vibration. We'll be able to move out of fear and into love. You know, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm hoping. And I see it working in my own life. That's really all that I can say. Because during citronitis is when we start to remember. We start to remember who we are and why we're here and what we came here to do and what's important, and find our truth. What really is my truth? What's so important to me that unless I'm living in alignment with that, I might as well not be here.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about David Icke and his interview with London Real of why YouTube banned that?
I have no idea, because I don't buy into any of that fear stuff and, you know, the dark forces and all. I don't go there, so I haven't looked at any of that stuff. I think that just pulls us into a lower vibration, regardless of what the material was in there. It was fear-based, and
yeah,
you know.
I like to be informed about these things, you know, based on the teachings of the masters in India. Mm-hmm. You know, I was taught that if humanity chooses to wake up in this century, which, you know, we've been here before.
Yeah.
Close to the Hunger Games. I mean,
yeah.
This is our first rodeo as humanity.
Right, yeah. You know.
And, you know, the question is, do we wake people up, or do we just pretend it didn't happen? And I do believe that there is you know, without being naive or saying, you know, I don't want to go into the fear stuff at all. I personally like to dive deep into some of these subjects because it interests me, you know, and they shut them down again today for the third interview. And of course, it's going to be posted on UNVEIL, and there are millions of people that are listening to it. And, you know, the question is, like, I have to go back to this voice in the car. When you heard Archangel Michael speaking to you, I think that if we're still enough and we're centered enough and we go into meditation or whatever, however we are able to create the inner voice or the inner listening, that we all have guides and angels and archangels around us. And they cannot come through if we're in a fear-based space.
Right. Absolutely, we can.
And so that's really the ultimate message, is do you want to be in the fear and continue fighting in this 3D reality? Or do you want to step it up into the fourth and fifth dimensional field and start to listen to the Pleiadians and all these wonderful, you know, ET races that have been here before, that have so much compassion for
that we're part of. I mean,
we're part of them.
We're not from here, folks. You know,
they're in the future, and we are still, you know, in a different timeline right now.
Yeah.
But I do believe you're absolutely right on, you know, could we engage? Like my partner was just introduced to David Icke through me, and he's really caught up in this now. You know, like, oh my God, you know, it is like 1984. It is the Hunger Games. And by the way, I could not sit through that movie. I could not watch
I haven't seen any of those.
No, I couldn't watch it. I mean, I tried, but I had to literally walk away. It was so disturbing to me. And, you know, I've read George Orwell's 1984 many times, because we are, you know, about to become controlled by AI. And, you know, Elon Musk warned about that AI is moving faster than we had anticipated. Yeah. And that, you know, we're being controlled and we're being, you know, navigated through this world by Google and Facebook and all these people. and people are really buying into this sort of reality.
Well, my belief is that is a reality. I don't know that it's the only reality, because I see potential all around me, and that's one potential, you know, but there are many, many, many more. And each of us has the opportunity to make a choice, which is what I think is so cool about multidimensionality, is that, you know, it can be a reality for this person. It doesn't have to be my reality. I can create a whole nother one over here that is perfect for me, and I don't have to see that.
You know, I noticed this when I go back to Germany, because I live in a, I feel almost like when I go back to Germany, I feel like I've been living in a different dimension.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really bizarre. I mean, when you fly back and forth from places, you really notice how you've lived in a different dimension. But who was it, Alan Watts? Wherever you go, there you are. Right. Yeah. So who really are you? What do you want to create in this world?
Exactly. And so that's why I don't want to put anything that's not part of my creation in my mind. I have a hard enough time keeping my mind reined in, you know, on a good day, so that my higher self can be the one that's doing the creation, not the small self.
Right. I was just having a conversation a few days ago with someone, and it was pretty funny. This might interest you. She said, you know, most fleeting thoughts just only take 90 seconds. So you can dismiss them, because, you know, I was telling her I really entertain myself throughout the day with all these crazy thoughts, because I'm a writer, right? And always running movies and loops in my head. And so 90 seconds, like if you're having a bad day and you're angry or you're feeling, you know, frustrated, let's say, with babysitting, you know, it's 90 seconds. Just watch it like a train go by, and then it moves.
It does, absolutely.
And what most people do, I think, is that they buy into the 90 seconds as lasting.
They get on the train.
They get on the train
and they ride that.
Yeah,
you know?
they
Yeah,
get on the
absolutely.
train and they identify with that reality, and that is the difference.
Yeah. And
Fascinating.
and that's, you know, and I know that I tend to be fairly malleable. I mean, I'm an empath, so
Yeah.
that's why I really do guard what I expose myself to, because I could get on that train just as easy as the next person. And I just feel like I don't need to know that.
Hmm.
I mean, I know that there are dark forces. I know they exist. Uh, I, you know, in my work, I end up helping people let go of implants that have been put in them from people, things, you know, of the darker nature or whatever, and it holds them back and it keeps them in a place of fear. It doesn't frighten me. I mean, I look at it like, oh, well, that's just really interesting. Okay, well, let's get rid of that, you know,
How do you get rid of that, and how do you do this?
through love.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I use Ho'oponopono a lot, but you first have to know it's there. It's kind of like this whole spiritual alchemy process. You first got to know it's there, and then you have to acknowledge it,
Hmm.
and you have to forgive it. You can't fight it away, and then it will go of its own accord.
And that's a very important point. You can't fight it away. It's like
And
they asked Mother Teresa to join an anti-war rally.
right,
And she said, talk to me and invite me to a peace rally. I'll
yeah.
come.
Yeah, and
Can't
and the
fight war.
truth of it is that there's nothing that can put an implant in you or do anything to you or manage you or control you in any way unless you allow it. We have free will. This is the planet of free will. We come here to master that lesson, in my opinion. And so most of these things that I find when I'm working with people to clear them were there were contracts, maybe in another lifetime, maybe in this lifetime. Many times, you know, we will get to a point of ultimate stress in our life and we'll hit our knees and we'll cry out, oh, God, please help me. And, you know, you never know who's going to answer that call. And a lot of it, you know, the true creator is an unconditional love thing. And yes, and if the prayer gets to creator God, then you get the help you want. You immediately get that peace that passes all understanding. And it's unconditional. It's an unconditional gift. But if some lesser vibrational being or dark energy intercepts that prayer, they'll go, yeah, hey, I'm God and I'm here to help you. And by the way, I want your soul for that. And I'm going to come claim it at some point in time, you know. And so the contracts were created for that kind of stuff in a lie to begin with. The negative energies tell you that they're God and you believe it and you go, okay, yeah, and I'll give my power away to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know, we have choice.
What are some of the negative energies that you feel that people give their power to?
Well, I mean, it can be anything as banal as just fear. You know, I mean, as humans, I think we're so willing to give our power away. We're so afraid of claiming that we might be a master because we've been punished many, many lifetimes for doing that. So, I mean, we tend to, in a heartbeat, you know, you want my power? Okay, here you go, take it. And we do that, you know. So
What about Elon Musk's invention? I can't remember the name of it right now. The implant that he's trying to do for people.
I don't know anything about it.
You don't know? I'll post it on the bottom of the page because right now it's kind of slipped my mind. But he has invented something, a chip that can merge with your consciousness.
I personally would not consider doing that because not fully understanding that, I don't want to give my power away to that. I don't want to give my power away to a vaccine for coronavirus.
This is very dangerous, I feel.
Yeah.
The vaccines and anything AI like this is very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
And so, I would rather die than have that done.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So how can we best create a positive outcome? What happens when we go into fear, and how can we avoid the trap?
Well, turn the TV off, number one. Don't read the newspaper. Be very careful what you read on the internet, because most of it is garbage. Some of it may be true. I don't know. So I'm just going to choose to not, and I'm going to, I believe that my connection is a vertical connection, and I can get information if I ask to be given what I need from highest light energy, then I'll get the answers that I require. So I don't really need to look outside myself for that. I call that, and get what I need. So if you choose to focus on love, there's only two things in the world, love and fear. And if it's not love, it's going to be some flavor of fear. So if you just stay in the love space and, operate from your heart, not from your head, those are the things that I think can help us to move through this time with the most amount of grace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So can you do a mini demonstration of the process?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that?
So after I received InnerSpeak, at some point in time, my guide said, well, Jean, there are millions of people out there who could benefit from your work, but they aren't going to understand it. So they'll never call you for a session. They won't read a book. They won't take a class. But if you'll make a deck of cards, they will play with cards. People love to play with cards.
Yeah.
So they showed me how to create this deck of cards. And it's they're the 7 colors of the rainbow. So the red cards are where you created the block for yourself. The orange cards are what happened to you to make you create this block. The yellow cards are what it did to you at the soul level. The blue cards are some stuck belief that you internalized as part of that and that you need to acknowledge so you can let it go. And then there are green cards, which are clearing processes. We're running out of places to put these things. There are violet cards, which are blessings that you receive for doing the work, for letting go. There's always a payoff. When you let go of lower vibrational stuff, there's always a payoff. And then there are indigo cards, which are a location, and you only use these when there is a past life situation. And they're strictly just locations like India. It could be the location for that. And for your listeners, my gift to your listeners is I have an automated version of this. It's a game that you can't do it wrong. It's going to be exactly what I'm fixing to do with you right now. But all they have to do, if they go to my website, jeanadrienne.com, and sign up for my newsletter, I will send them a link for their own free subscription to the online version of these cards. And they can keep that forever. They can opt out of my newsletter at any time, and I never stop them from using the cards because I want people to clear away their garbage.
So are your cards on Amazon, or how do
Oh yeah,
buy the
they're
card?
on Amazon, and they're called InnerSpeak cards.
Okay, I'll make sure that's all listed on the bottom of the page.
So let's do a quick clearing?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited. The sun's coming out.
Okay, so is there something that you would like to let go of?
Do I have to say it out loud?
Nope, you do not.
All right.
Okay, so just take a moment, surrender to spirit, and ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to pull a red card, and it says past life. So the thing that you're dealing with, whatever it is you're wanting to let go of, is something that actually originated in another lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So in the lifetime where this was set up for Petra was her soul male. You were a female, and because it's past life, we're going to see where that lifetime took place. When I do a full InnerSpeak clearing on somebody, I get the location, the time, it's like names, dates, and places. But for the cards, you don't really need that. There really is no such thing as time anyway. So this lifetime for you took place in the Orient, China or Japan. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so let's see what happened to you that would have created a block for you that you're wanting to let go of now. So the orange cards are called setup. So let's see what the setup is. I'm going to pull 2 of these. This one.
I'm excited.
And this one. Okay. And so the setup says, child or loved one taken away. And servitude, felt powerless.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see what this did to your soul. The yellow cards are the soul reaction. This is where you connect to this old lifetime in the Orient. So it feels like it was China. It feels like it was about in the 1800s. Okay, so soul reaction. Which one is it? This one. Caused you to close your heart. The pain of that was so much that you thought, okay, if I keep my heart closed, then I can't get hurt anymore, which is not necessarily true. Because when you close your heart, you can't receive anything.
Exactly.
Love or anything.
Right.
And there's a stuck belief from that lifetime that you're still dealing with at some level, possibly just subconscious. And it is, I don't deserve.
Ah.
So does any of this resonate with you? With what it is you're wanting to work on?
I'm definitely, I mean, I do know about a lifetime I had in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was also a lifetime in Germany. And not long ago, actually, I died in Auschwitz. I was in the gas chamber.
Wow. Yeah.
So somebody even saw that life.
I got chills on that one. Wow.
I was 5. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was obsessed with Nazi Germany and figuring all this out. So it makes sense. I mean, we've had so many lifetimes.
Oh yeah, and we tend to work on the same issue, the same spiritual lesson. We'll work on it for 50, 100 lifetimes until we master it. All right, so let's clear this thing.
And the discoverability is a big one. I mean, with my clients, it's like, okay, what part of you feels that you don't deserve?
Yeah.
True love or prosperity, joy, wisdom, whatever
anything,
it
yeah.
is. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I pulled 3 of the green cards. The green cards are the clearings. So the first card, I want you to just close your eyes and I want you to go find this woman that was you in the Orient.
Okay.
That had a child or a loved one taken away, who felt powerless to do anything about it. I want you to connect heart to heart with her. And I want you to ask her, what can I do to help you? And just let me know when you feel complete.
Okay.
The second card says forgive all concerned. So I want you to show her how to forgive. She needs to forgive whoever it was who took her child or loved one away. And she needs to forgive herself for not being able to do anything about it and going into this victim mentality of giving her power away. Mm-hmm. Probably needs to forgive the God of her heart, the God of her understanding, and anybody else involved in that lifetime. So just help her model forgiveness for her and help her to do that forgiveness piece. And now you've got energetic debris inside your body and out in your field from that old lifetime. This stuff looks like mirrors. And what it does is it attracts to you people, places, and situations that make you feel like you felt in this lifetime in the Orient. So I just want you to ask God and the angels to take all these mirrors out of your body and out of your field. Take them away. Take them to the light. You don't need to hold that energy anymore. Yeah. And the final piece of this is you get blessings for having the courage to really expose yourself in front of your audience. So let's see what your blessings are. The violet cards, they say angel blessings. So the first one is opening to miracles.
Beautiful.
The second one is renewed faith in yourself. And there's one more. The return of your authority, your power, and your confidence. And it is gratitude that owns every clearing. So just take a moment now and give thanks to your angels, your teachers, your guides. And I ask that all of Petra's reference points and grids are updated. I ask for a balancing and a stabilization of her fields and all systems, levels, and components of her being. And I ask that she's wrapped in sheets of rainbow light, gently sealing this work in to whatever degree is appropriate for her spiritual evolutionary state. So be it. So it is.
And so it is. Well, thank you.
And so everybody that watches this is going to get the same healing, because if they're called to watch this, they probably have the same sort of issue, which would be this closed heart. Mm-hmm. And so they'll all receive the same healing. So thank you for doing this, because you're opening a pathway for a complete morphogenetic group to be able to let go of old stuff that they don't need anymore.
And we really, truly all need to open our hearts right now, more than ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's this whole thing about living our life from the heart and not from the head anymore.
Exactly. The mind, the good old mind. So
why
does attachment keep us so stuck?
Well, so one of the major rules in the universal laws, and every master throughout history has said something about this, is that we're not supposed to be attached to anything. Again, that's part of giving our power away. When you become attached to something, you've given power to it. And so once we latch on to a potential, then we can't see past that potential. We'll create that in our life. And it may not be the thing that's for our highest good, because we just stopped at the point that we got attached. And so that's why it keeps us stuck, because we forget all the other potentials that are out there. And, it's like, at the fast food restaurants where they have these places where the kids can play after they've eaten their Big Mac or whatever they eat. Yeah. And it's like, there's one of them that's like a big swimming pool, and it's full of colored balls. Mm-hmm. And they can just jump into there and they can play around in that thing. I've been in there. And okay, so it's like you're swimming in the sea of colored balls, and you pick one up and you go, well, that's a really pretty red one. Oh, but wait a minute, here's an orange one over here. I like this one better. Oh, no, I want this yellow one again. It's that kind of thing where we can continually make choices that are moving us in the direction of our highest good, unless we stop. But a lot of the stuff that we get attached to is really not stuff. I think that most people on planet Earth today have to deal with the lesson of being attached to being right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what really trips most of us up. I can remember as a small child, my mother would ask me, Jeannie, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? Because every time you win an argument, you lose a friend. And I didn't understand what she was talking about, but she was definitely wise beyond her years, and so it's a matter of not being attached to an outcome of any sort. Mm-hmm. And the other piece of this, it really is where it really gets kind of gnarly, is that once we think that we know what's good for somebody else, and we try to tell them that, we get energetically entangled with them. Mm-hmm. And that's messy. It's the baseline of codependency for starters, but tied in with that energetic entanglement, we start running their karma, and when another person feels you trying to push an agenda on them, even at a very deep subconscious level, they will push back, and it hurts, especially for somebody who's an empath.
Absolutely. So when I first met my partner Jerry, he had a difficult time with non-attachment, because he wanted, he was used to the model of in order to be in a relationship you have to be attached, and so all the relationships he's had before were all attached relationships. with, you know, an expectation, an outcome, marry me, do this, you have to do this, 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 this. So at first it really rattled his reality when we got together, because I practiced non-attachment from my teachers. And I worked really hard every day on not being attached to things and objects. You know, I sold everything I ever owned. I sold it all. I got rid of it, gave it away as whatever. I just didn't want to be attached to physical things to hold me back to do what I needed to do. And that includes also relationships. And the discussion was about commitment versus attachment.
Good one.
And it took him quite a while. It took him about 2 years to really wrap his mind around the difference between commitment and attachment.
Yeah, but you know, one of the first questions I would have asked is that you've had all these other relationships that were all about attachment. How'd that work for you, honey? You know,
didn't
we
work.
wouldn't be at this point of conversation if that had worked.
Right.
You know?
He was always running away. So he was running away. And it's a funny thing too, with commitment. I mean, you have someone that shows up on a daily basis, that is always there to do the things that they said they were going to do. We make a commitment, but it doesn't mean that if I die tomorrow, I don't want you to, you know, live this life feeling like you can't be with someone else now, or if something happens to the relationship and it morphs somehow, that we can't move on and still be happy. And so I find it so sad to see people sometimes being so entangled. You know, was it Einstein that came up with the entanglement theory?
I have no idea
which scientist it was, but you know, studying science for years and years and years, I was very fascinated with entanglement and how we consciously entangle ourselves with objects, things, and events.
Right.
And how to get out. So speaking of that, can you tell us about the 142 DNA activations? Because I know you know, we're leading into this work that you did, Jean, that is so fascinating to me. And I just love, by the way, you know, I could talk to you for 10 hours straight. I don't think.
Oh, yeah. Well, me too. I love chatting with you. Yeah. So at some point, I get my best messages from Spirit when I'm driving in my car. That voice started in my car.
You know, same here. That's why I love long trips and drive. And I love to be alone.
I know. And my granddaughter was asking me the other day, Grandma Jeannie, why don't you listen to music in your car? And I'm like, because it gets in my way. I don't want to listen to music in my car. I want quiet. Because I truly believe that the reason why it works so well for me in the car is that my left hemisphere, my brain, is very occupied keeping my car between the two white lines and making sure I don't hit anything, you know? So that frees up my right hemisphere to receive, to be connected to Spirit, to the messages and all that. So I'm driving in the car and I hear the same voice, and the voice said, so today I want to talk to you about DNA. And I'm like, okay. And he said, well, you know, at some point in the evolution of the human species, you guys had more than 2 strands of DNA. You had 144 strands of DNA. And he said, you lovingly gave DNA to another civilization who came to planet Earth to heal themselves. They had rendered themselves sterile because they had been doing a lot of scientific stuff that ended up making it to the point that they couldn't reproduce anymore. And so they were dying away. And they started looking throughout the galaxies, and they found the blue planet with this species of beings that had 144 strands of DNA. And they thought, aha, this is a good place for us to work, you know. And I think a lot of people still have dimensional bleed through of being maybe taken by an alien onto a spaceship or something like that. I think that probably relates to some of this experimental work that took place with humans. But at any rate, when they left, and we willingly participated in it, we weren't coerced or dumbed down or we absolutely, out of love, wanted to help them. And we said, yeah, sure. Okay. And so when they left, we had 2 strands of DNA. And we've been fine for lo these many eons with 2 strands of DNA. But now that we're moving in consciousness into this 5th dimensional reality, it's time for us to reclaim our gifts and our power. Because what we didn't realize was that associated with each strand of DNA was an aspect of Christ consciousness, a gift. And we gave our gifts away. So they said, we want you, if you choose to accept this job, we want you to draw 142 pictures, and each of these pictures will hold the frequency of a latent strand of DNA, and then like examine, look at, meditate on this glyph, if you will, and they look, there's one of them, and they can retrieve that frequency, that energy. So this one that I just happened to pull is the DNA strand of relationship. And it says, you can see where you are relative to everyone and everything else. New doors open to you as you understand your oneness with all that is. And I really think that this is a huge message for this time of the coronavirus, because we're being sheltered in place, so to really begin to see our relationship with ourselves and how important our relationship is with other humans. So just take a moment and invite your higher self to work with the energetic fields and the guides to activate the vibration of relationship in your heart center, in your divine line, inside yourself. And ask that it be done for your body as well. And then update all your reference points, update all your grids. And you've just activated the DNA strand of relationship. So that's how these cards work. There's 142 of them. And so I tell people when they work with these cards, just pull a card and work with it for a day or so. A lot of my clients will take a paper clip and will paper clip the card to the box, and just so they can think about it when they see the box, they can remember that. Or I also say, so just take one of these cards and put it in a Ziploc bag so you don't mess it up. Put your water glass on top of that so that you're infusing your water with this frequency, so that you're taking it internally as well as with the intention of bringing it in, through your intention.
Can you speak a little bit on the subject of how frequency is created? Like, obviously we're energy bodies, I do biofeedback, so I work with frequency. By the way, there is a new wearable biofeedback device coming out of Germany called the Healy that I should probably tell you about, that I think you,
oh yes, please,
together with your cards, I think you will find that very fascinating. And I will list some information on the bottom of this. So basically,
okay, great.
Instead of having to buy a massive biofeedback device and get sessions, you can own your own biofeedback device and run it while you're in the car. Run a frequency on
I like it.
Food system or DNA.
And I've got I have some little boxes. I interviewed a guy many years ago. His company is called New Tesla, and they're frequencies, they're solfeggio frequencies, and each does a specific thing. And I run one of them that neutralizes EMF. It's in my living room where the TV is and where my computer is most of the time. And then I have another one that's called Somnius that I run, it's under my mattress. And it, again, neutralizes EMF while I'm sleeping, so that I don't get so much interference from mass consciousness or from, devices that might be active in my home or in the neighborhood or something like that. It's very, very important to...
So are the cards also on Amazon? People can buy the cards?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and they're called Reconnecting Soul, 142 DNA activation cards. There's also a guidebook, there's an ebook that goes into real detail about each of the cards, because there's not a lot of information how to with the cards themselves, just the symbol and what the symbol means that's on the back of the card. So I ended up, people wanted more information, so I made it really cheap. It's like $3.99 to get the guidebook, to go along with them. But yeah.
Fascinating work, Jean. Fascinating. So
Thank you.
Michael, Archangel Michael channeled through you. bringing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's my guy.
Well, he's one of
Like
my.
Megatron, they're my gatekeepers on either side.
Exactly. Every reading I've ever had to say, yeah, Archangel Michael standing on the right.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so it's wonderful. So, do you have any final thoughts for our audience of anything else you would like to share today with us?
Well, just, just stay in love and do your best, because that's all we can ever do is do our best. And I love, Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, because that's just kind of like one of the mottos that I live my life by, is to, not take anything personally and just, do my best in every moment of every day, and take responsibility for your life, because when you do, that's when you can create what you want.
Well, thank you so much for taking
Pleasure.
the time.
Good to see you again.
Oh my goodness, we need to get together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Meet somewhere in the middle.
Yes, absolutely. What's in the middle? Where could we meet? Would that be what's in the West? I can't think.
Yeah, where are you? I don't.
I'm actually in Washington at the moment, but it's.
Oh man, I want to come see you. I've never been to Washington.
What?
Yeah, I've never been there. I've never been to the Pacific Northwest ever.
Well, we'll have to just fly you out.
Well, you know what? I mean, I've got a whole bunch of airline credits, because I was supposed to have gone to Turkey to teach in April. And so I've got a whole bunch of airline credits. So I just might have to come out there and see what the Pacific Northwest is like once we get all this stuff settled down again.
Jean, I do retreats all the time. We have a retreat house on the North Umpqua River in Roseburg, and then one here on the Lewis River. So
cool.
After we get off the show here today, let's scheme. How about we
okay
and create a retreat where you can.
All right, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. I'd love to see you here. And
cool.
Thank you again for taking the time and also clearing me of that my China life.
Yeah.
Yay. Way. I'm sure that must have been very painful. So I feel lighter now, and it was a truly a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Namaste.
Much love.
Namaste.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.